Okay, so today we're going to be starting a new project. This is going to be a fun project for me. I'm going to be building a console table for a repeat customer, and this is going to be a console table. It's going to be 20 inches long or wide. It's going to be 16 inches deep, and it's going to be 26.5 inches high. I end up being a little higher because we're going to be putting a LiveEdge on this. So that's so the dimensions won't be exact on the top since we're going to be using a maple LiveEdge. So the frame we're going to be building here is going to be made of all poplar, and it's going to be a box. So that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with a box. So the box, I'm going to be laminating a bunch of pieces of poplar. This is 4/4 poplar. We're going to mill up to about 3/4 of an inch, roughly, and then we're going to laminate using glue and biscuits. So essentially, we're building a bunch of little tops. So here we're going to start with a typical mill process. We're going to do this step a few times for different aspects of this project. So right now we're going to be running everything through the miter saw, through the jointer, through the table saw, and then through the thickness planer. And then we will laminate everything, like I said, using biscuits and glue to keep everything nice and level and nice and straight and centered. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to just mill everything up to the final dimensions here, and then we're going to do a lot of lamination. So essentially, we're going to be building ultimately about 4 tops, equivalent of what I would consider thin tops. Since the steps are identical, making sure joinery is tight, make sure we have no gaps, make sure when it's all built, it looks like one piece of wood, and that's the idea. Okay, you can see here our pieces are dried up from the glue overnight lamination. So now we're going to cut down to the final length and get ready to set up our joinery for these pieces. So this project is going to be a lot more difficult than it needed to be for me. Like I said, I could have went and bought a piece of plywood and just knocked this out a lot quicker. You know, made a box, and just done some butt joints and glue and brad nails and some screws. But I decided, and that's fine. A lot of people you can do that. But I decided, since this was a smaller table and it's holding a LiveEdge, so it's going to hold a little weight to it. I wanted to make it, and it's a repeat client. I want to make it nicer, a little nicer in my perspective. And it's always subjective. But I want to make it a little nicer, a little stronger, more uniform. I wanted the stain to match every piece of wood. Rather be, because I don't need a face frame essentially for this, but I will be putting trim up, but not a face frame since it's all hardwood. So we're going to get all this laid out. We're going to cut it all down with the track saw here. You can use a regular circuit saw with a straight edge. There's no issue with doing that. I've done that for years. So we're going to start getting this all ready, and then we're going to set up our joinery. So the joinery is going to be, we're going to be using rabbets joinery. So we're going to be using a bunch of little small dado cuts, and they're going to be using dados for the middle divider and the one side, which will hold a fixed shelf. The client wanted a fixed shelf, so rather than just glue and screwing it in, I decided to put a dado in there, and you'll see that in a little bit. We'll start laying that out for the thickness, and it's not plywood, so it's definitely we have a little more room to make mistakes here. So in other words, I can cut the dado a little tight, and then I can mill up the divider a little easier. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to find our center here from the bottom and the tops, and then we're going to have to do each side from the middle divider and the one left-hand side of the box where we'll hold the shelf. And the other side is going to be a door. And so for that, we're going to be using shaker style doors with rails and styles and rails, and we're going to be using glue for that and assembling them. And we'll set them up, and we'll also be using miters for the edges. For each end, we're going to be putting miter cuts, little trim out pieces, and then for the platform, we're going to be using mortise and tenon joinery. So there's going to be a lot of different facets of woodworking into this project. Here we go again. We're going to be doing our middle divider here. Same process. We're going to be using glue and biscuits, and we're going to laminate this, let this sit for a few hours. Then we'll be able to really start assembling this box. Okay, so now we're going to be putting our dado set in here. We got our thickness set for the lumber. So now we're going to be putting these pieces in. So obviously when you're doing this, make sure you unplug your saw. So right now our first cut is going to be for these rabbet joinery for the edges, for the tops and bottoms of the box. So we're not going to be using a full dado set here. This will be about roughly, I'm going to say about almost a ½ inch rabbet cut we're going to be putting on each edge here. So we're going to make sure we cut this nice and slow. We're using our miter. And just kind of take our time here and just keep pressure against the fence without binding, but also pressure downward too, so that the top doesn't move as we're sliding across. So this is, in my opinion, the easiest way to do this. Yeah, you can use a router, and I do have the bits for that. This is just a little quicker for me, and I think it's a little more foolproof. Sometimes routers jump, and you kind of got to scratch the project. Where this, you have a little room for not mistakes, but room for error here. So, and you can kind of fix them, and just like I said here, you could just kind of chisel them up, clean them up, get them nice and smooth, and we're going to repeat this process for all 4 pieces for our box. Okay, so here we're not going to depend on math and our drawing here. So we're going to be getting our final dimensions for our center divider. So we want to put the box together. We're going to dry fit it, and then we're going to get our final length for our center divider. That way we know everything's going to fit tight. And can't always trust when you're milling things up, especially lumber, that it's going to be the same, because it's not as dimensioned as plywood. So we have a little bit more room here to not only make mistakes but also fix mistakes or inconsistencies. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to do it this way. And this is coming together pretty good. So like I said, we're just going to dry fit, make sure everything's good. Now we're going to get our center divider for each side and in the middle divider, where we're going to be putting our other dado cut in, which will have another piece for our middle shelf on the left-hand side of the box. So this is going to go together like a big giant puzzle. It's a little difficult doing by one person. Definitely would be a little easier if I had multiple hands here, but your clamps and your squares and everything, it kind of makes it doable. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to let everything out, make sure everything's lined up, and we're going to start putting everything together after we know everything's nice and square and straight. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to start adding glue and put our box together like a big giant puzzle. So now we're going to go to the next phase of this project. We're going to be building one door. So the door, we're going to be using shaker style joinery here, like I mentioned earlier in the video. So we're going to be using table saw for this. There's multiple ways you could do this. I like to use just a regular blade and just run through two sides, or one side, flip over and do the other, or turn. And then that will give us our center, I guess we'll call it our rabbet, for where our plywood will lay in the center. So we're using poplar. You can also use a router table for this, if you have the bits. But the table saw is just, to me, it's a little easier, especially with longer pieces like this, these rails and styles. So it just makes it a little easier, and you have a little bit more room to, like I said, to maneuver and fix any inconsistencies, and just put these together. So this we're going to be doing real quick. We're just going to do one door. I've built many of these doors this way, and it works fine. We're going to be using just some glue and clamps to put this together. And the floating center will be just a piece of plywood. So, and that's what we're doing here. Like I said, this is going to be like a rustic farmhouse. Still style of the table, but with some good details and some clean joinery and just a good finished product. And that's the idea. I don't want it to be too rustic, but the farmhouse style people do definitely like, and that's what we're kind of shooting for here. So we're gonna put this together. We're gonna dry fit everything, and then we'll cut our center piece of plywood here, and then we'll put everything together with glue. Okay, so now what? We're going to strengthen this box with some trim head screws. So we're going to just countersink and run some screws in at all the joinery points here, just to make sure this stays nice and tight. Now that we know everything's square, we're going to finalize this box. And that's what I like to do. I like to glue everything up first in case I have to run a clamp diagonally across, and then we can fix it after the fact. So now we're going to another phase of this project. Now we're going to start building our base. Our base is what the table is going to sit on, the box. We're going to be using some maple for this, and the maple is going to be some little miter cuts, I guess we'll call it, down the bottom, about a 50-degree angle. I hate making these cuts, honestly, but these feet are too small to run through the table saw, in my opinion. So it was just a little safer to use a miter saw for this. So we're going to cut our stretchers and aprons and our center dividers, and we're going to put everything together with some glue and mortise and tenon joinery with our domino. So we're going to be using our 6 by 40 millimeter dominoes, since these are going to be pretty small pieces. We're going to clean these feet up, get everything nice and sanded, and start to set our joinery up. So like I said, there's another method of woodworking, added to this project. So there's a lot of steps in this smaller table. A lot of details go into these projects. That's why, think about this when you're charging your client. Think about all these steps, all these tools, all these accessories, and each domino costs you a quarter. Things like that. It all adds up. Your glue, and just your time. There's a lot of steps in this. Yeah, you could have just built a box and just kind of glued everything up, put some pocket screws in, and which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I do that. But I wanted to make this, a little stronger, a little nicer. And in my opinion, I think stuff goes together a little square when I use mortise tenon joinery. I have a little less issues with things kicking out of square sometimes, but I get with pocket screws. So that's why I like building this. And it's also a little funner. And like I said, this needs to be fun for you too. So this is fun work for me. I love doing this, and this makes it enjoyable when I'm kind of, pushing and challenging myself. And making things come together, just from a vision of a client's, ideas we put together. So, and that's the idea of this. So this is something that they kind of helped me design, and they want it, and we're building it. So that's the beauty of woodworking or building anything, whether it be a metal worker, or whatever you build, houses, cars, etc. You're kind of taking something that somebody envisioned, whether it be you or a client, and you're kind of putting that in the real life practice. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to build our frame. We're going to clamp everything up. This is pretty simple, nice and square, and came out real nice. So let's go. Okay, so there we cleaned up our our door. So we just we're going to scribe that into the spot, make sure we have good even spacing. So now here we're going to start doing some other miter cuts at 45-degree angles. This is going to be for some of the trim work on the sides, just a nice little detail. It's not something I need to do because I'm not really covering anything up, but it just looks good. It's like little things like this that hopefully will make your work stand out. Even though I don't have any screws in the sides or brad nails, since I'm going from the top, and the glue was strong enough, but we're still going to do this anyway. And we're going to throw a couple of brad nails in anyway that are pretty long, just to hold not only the trim, but also it helps fortify the box if needed. So we're just going to finish cleaning this up. We're going to clean up the base here. We're going to sand it, round over all the edges, and then we're ready to start moving on to the next step. And we're going to put some trim on the fronts. And this is just going to be hiding the lap joints, essentially. Don't need to do this because it came out real clean. But it's just something that I think is a nice little touch. And we're not going to miter this. We're just going to do like long, almost like a face frame type layout here, but it's not. So that's what we're doing here. We're going to pre-drill our bottom frame. We're going to be using threaded inserts for this as we space it out. So we'll set that up now with threaded inserts. So it's another step in this project. So there's a lot of little details, like I mentioned, in this little table. So this is it's a pretty cool build. So we're going to really set this up. And if you have any questions also on some of the stuff or recommendations, always let me know in the comments, because that definitely helps me, because I am learning. I'm not a master builder. A lot of my ideas I get from other people. YouTube has been a great resource, and other platforms and just books. So, and this is where you pretty much learn. So now we're going to start staining this thing, this box, and they wanted special walnut min wax. So that's what we're going to use. We're going to stain this every inch of it, and then the top, like I said, will be a LiveEdge. That will be natural, and the bottom base will be natural maple also. We won't touch. We'll just put some mineral oil and some finish on that. But right now we're just going to stain this. We're just going to wipe on and brush on, and then we're going to wipe off the excess. Okay, so now we're going to install this door. We're going to be using this little jig here to put our hinges in, and these are going to be Euroset recessed hinges. They're also soft close. So we're going to just put this in using the jig, which is a big Forstner bit, and then we're just going to screw it in. We use our self-centering drill bit to get our holes here, and then we're just going to tap these in, and then we're going to line up from the inside using the same type layout, and we're just going to kind of like lay these in into the door, screw them in, then we'll slide the door on. Here you see I'm also going to scribe this door a little bit just to make sure our spacing's even. Another good thing about these type of hinges is you can adjust from the back. So you can adjust there's 3 screws. One goes up and down, one goes forward and back, and the other one will go side to side. So now we're going to put a little handle on, and we just have this little template that I use for this. I'm sure there's obviously better ways to do this, but this came with this little handle set that I ordered. So we're going to put this on. It's going to be black. It's going to match other hardware they're going to be using for other things we're building. So we want to go with a black handle here. And so we're going to install this. And we're just going to screw it in lightly, and then we're going to hand tighten it just to make sure we shore it all up. And make sure the drawer lays right and closes correctly. Okay, so now we have the top we're going to start working on. So this is going to be a big maple top. It's going to match some shelves we already installed for this client. And we're going to use the track saw to cut this down to the final dimensions. So we're going to just be doing 2 or 3 90-degree angles on each side and the back. And then the front obviously will be a LiveEdge, so that won't be dimensioned at any type of 90-degree angle, obviously. So this is going to be pretty easy for the most part. We're going to do a lot of sanding, a lot of cleanup. But we don't have to, they don't want epoxy for this, which is good, because it saves a lot of time, because epoxy could take a couple days to dry, depending on how many coats you put on. So this, we're just going to clean up the edge, and we're going to be using a mineral oil, and then we're going to be using Odie's oil for the finish, which will give it a nice, clear, clean finish, which you'll see later. Towards the end of this, we'll be doing. So now we're just cleaning up, like I said, the edges here and sanding everything down to the final grit. We'll go up to about 220 grit on this, and we're also going to run a chamfer on all edges here to soften them out, and really be ready to install this top, which we're going to do on site. But I'm going to fill a couple holes here with some epoxy. There's a couple little, tiny little holes we want to clean up, and we'll do a little water pop. Do a final sanding for that, and then we'll finish that with the Odie's oil. But also for the base, we're gonna, or the box itself, we're gonna be using Armor Seal polyurethane. Just a nice finish for a little added protection and a little more of a gleam to the box. So here we're just gonna finish up. We're gonna put some mineral oil on the top, and then we'll, like I said, we'll finish buffing in the Odie's oil. And we're preparing, we're going to pre-drill our holes for the top when we get on site. We're going to install the top on site to make it a little lighter and easier to manage. And you can see here we're just going to buff on some Odie's oil with a Scotch-Brite pad, and then we're going to just buff it in with a little buffer. And really, that's about it for the most part. This project's pretty much done. And hopefully you can learn something. I know I learned a lot, and it was a fun project to build. If you have any questions or recommendations, please let me know. And thanks for watching. Otherwise.